Hello, my name is Carl Holmgren, and here's caster system number 4 out of the 6. It's casters for my workbench. The casters are retracted to extend them, push down a pedal on each side, and I extend 4 large diameter swivel casters, which let my workbench roll wherever I want it. So, let's go ahead and build a caster system for one end of the workbench. For each end of the workbench, we'll need 2 30-inch pieces for legs, 2 20-inch pieces for cross pieces, 2 10-inch pieces for caster support blocks, or for caster mounting blocks, one of which has to be cut off at a 15-degree angle. And a 6 1/4-inch piece of 2x4 with a piece of hardwood glued to it. I want the casters to be as far apart as possible so that the table will be stable when the casters are swiveled inwards. So I remove material from the inside of the legs so the casters can swivel, be positioned quite further out and swivel clear of the clearance for the caster on the inside of the bottom end of the legs. I just used a dado stack, my full 7/8 dado stack. Set it about 1 inch high and made a mark on the insert at about 4.5 inches from the point where the blade disappears into the slot. Now, with a chisel, I'm just going to pare off the corners on the steps between the cuts. I need to cut a rabbet on the edge of each cross piece and each leg for a sheet of plywood to serve as a reinforcement and to tie the cross pieces and the legs together. So I'm the same dado stack. I'm going to set it about 1/4 inch high, or slightly proud of that, and the fence exactly 3/4 inch from the edge of the blade. Before assembly, we need to clean out the rabbets. Pieces, and I made up a stick 14 inches long to separate the cross pieces the correct distance. On the back leg, we have a caster mounting block bearing piece, caster mounting block proper, and then the casters. Before we do any assembly, we need to round over the bottom edge of this bearing block with about a 2.5 inch radius. Now I need to go to the bandsaw and disc sander and smoothly remove the material to this curve. Okay, we can start assembly. This is the back leg for one side. And I'm just going to mark the position of the cross pieces. I'm going to just use 3 screws in each joint, and I want the screws to go in at an angle so they don't just split the grain of the cross piece. I want it to go at an angle and catch several layers of grain. So we'll drill. Okay, here's the first problem. The caster mounting blocks are hinged together, and I've got a 12-inch strap hinge with lots of beef, but there isn't room for both the hinge and the casters hinge. So what I'm going to do is route the underside of these caster mounting blocks about 1/8 of an inch deep, so I can recess the hinges and then mount the casters on top of the hinges with a flush surface. Okay, I've rigged up my router with a guide collar and a bit that protrudes. So I'll make a template out of hardboard the same thickness as the guide collar, and see if I can route a recess for each half of the hinges on the caster support blocks. I sketched the outline of the hinge on a piece of hardboard, and then I used my jigsaw to cut out the pattern, staying to the outside of the line to make up for the difference in the diameter of the router bit and the collar that guides it. Well, I've got the hinge recessed nicely. I can mount the caster right on top of it. So I'm going to mark to drill for screw pilot holes or caster mounting board to the leg with a hinge. So I'll need some pilot holes for the hinge on this side of the caster mounting board. Before I can attach the front leg to the cross pieces, I've got a little problem here. The caster mounting blocks are a little bit too long. So I've got to trim off the back end of the rear block, just as 1/16 of an inch or so. So there's room for them to flex upwards without trying to spread the front and rear legs. Okay, I've rounded off the rear end of the rear caster mounting block on the disc sander, and I think we're in good shape now. I can go ahead and drill pilot holes and install screws to attach the front leg to the cross pieces. modify the swivel casters, number one, by removing the brake. And it's mounted with a rivet that we need to drill out. So grab the rivet with the vice grip type plier. Extract the rivet and the brake pad and the little brake lever. Number two, hacksaw off this extension that mounts the brake on the caster fork so it doesn't interfere with the legs on the workbench. Okay, ready to mount the casters. I've got a piece of scrap to hold these caster mounting blocks in the down position or flat position. And the casters can be installed as far out as possible, and yet so they swing, they don't contact the legs. So I'll hold the caster in that position and mark for pilot holes. Okay, caster's attached. Prepared the lever arms out of 1 inch by 1/8 strap iron, 24 inches long. Drilled 2 number 10 holes where I'm going to attach with screws to the rear caster mounting block. Drilled 2 5/16 holes for the pedal pivot or pedal mounting bolt, and I've shaped the end with this profile to provide for a stop screw in the pedal to prevent it from rotating too far down and out. I've made up a couple of pedals, glued up plywood to a 1 1/4 inch thickness, roughly 3.5 by 3.5 inches, and have cut this at a 75-degree angle, or 15 degrees off of 90, and attached a 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood latch plate that will serve to hold the extend retract pedal in the down position. So 5/16 bolt, washer, pedal, washer, the other arm, and the nut. And I'll just use a little thread locker on the nut and cut off the excess thread of the bolt. To install the pedal extend retract levers, make a mark on the rear caster mounting block about 1.25 inches from the end. And then mark, we're drilling a pilot hole, a screw pilot hole, with the lever arm held slightly above the center line, slightly above the center line. Remember that I've installed the extend retract strap iron levers with 1 screw at the end of each one. And now I want to test its operation before installing the second screw in each one. So I've Again, put in this spacer block to hold the caster mounting blocks in the folded down position. And I know that we want to have this screw a little bit below the center line. This screw a little bit above the center line, this one a little bit below, so the levers will angle downwards towards the pedal. And yet we want to be sure that there's room for this front caster to clear the arms. So I'm going to install a C-clamp here just to temporarily hold the extend retract levers in a test position. Now I'll remove the block, and we want to be sure that the casters will retract clear of the floor when the pedal is in the up position. And when the pedal is in the down position, we want to be sure that the caster mounting block is flat so the casters will swivel nicely, and that the casters are holding the legs well clear of the floor. So we've got clearance for the casters to swivel, got the travel just about correct. I think we can go ahead and install these two screws. Adding a stop screw on the pedal. So if you bring the pedal all the way up, I'm going to mark for drilling a pilot hole and putting in a small 1-inch round head screw on each side. And we need a latch to hold the pedal in the down position, to lock the pedal against in the down position. Just a 3.5 piece of 1/4-inch plywood, but a 45-degree bevel on the top edge so that the pedal can unlatch and latch easily. So just holding it in position, a spacer block holding the caster mounting blocks flat. And I'm just going to attach it with glue and some staples. I've attached the leg assemblies to my old workbench top, and just attached with long screws right into the MDF top. And then I've added these plywood gussets for side-to-side bracing. I put some plywood on each side into the rabbet of the legs and the cross pieces to provide stiffness from front to back. And take a note of these gate hinges on the back edge of the top. I've added my rather crude leg vise. Added doors to the front, and I have cut away the leg assemblies to fit over top of my bench vise, woodworker's bench vise. The doors have slots at the hinge to provide for the extend retract lever arm. Perhaps one day I'll build a proper woodworker's workbench out of beech or some other hardwood using this principle. And I think the principle of these leg assemblies could be used for many of the very sophisticated woodworkers' benches with proper mortise and tenon joinery, cross beams, storage drawers underneath. In the meantime, I think I've got a pretty good concept here for the retracting casters on each end. I've got my bench right side up. And of course, the casters at each end retract by simply unlatching the foot pedals. And the casters latch down, pushing the first pedal down and rocking it inwards. I've got provision here for an end device that I use together with dogs in the bench top for planing or sanding or carving wood. And the bottom of the bench vise, when it's expanded out, has a little jackknife clock that extends the pivot point out for extending the end vise further out. Or when I bring the bench vise in, the little pivot blocks fold up and clamp against the leg assembly. So the casters pivot nicely, and there's going to be lots of room underneath for my compressor, a shop vac, and maybe and it's still a fairly light bench. So, to hold it in place for some vigorous planing or woodwork, I attached the bench to the wall with these hinges, these gate hinges. And now the bench is solid as a rock, won't move no matter how vigorously I'm working it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.